Well, welcome everyone. This is my first interview podcast, and I'm going to call it Eric's One-on-One. I'm supposed to be backfilling Mr. Mishka because he was responsible for a lot of the interviews. So I'm trying to figure out a way and a format that makes sense for me. What I came down to after talking to a few people, like Ethan in particular, was that the reason he likes doing interview podcasts is he likes to talk to people or talk about to people or to companies that he doesn't understand or that he wants to understand more. And so I think I'm just going to leverage what he's doing and do that kind of thing. These are not meant to be like, PR fluff. It's my goal basically to understand what these companies and these people do, how they fit within the ecosystem itself, and basically how they solve problems and innovate in their fields. So that's going to be the focus of my one-on-one interviews. Now, my first interview / victim is Wehype. Why am I kind of interested in this? Well, I think the current UA environment with traditional marketing has been under attack and almost annihilated by Apple. So alternatives must be found to attract these audience. And part of that thesis is that brands and IP will become more and more prevalent as going forward, right? Whether it's existing IP or brands that we know, but also new brands in gaming brands that need to be developed. So my question here is, how does Wehype, which is a service that allows you to access the creator economy to help build brands, how does that create an alternative channel that will help build awareness and most likely purchase intent for those brands and IP? So that's why I care. That's why I'm interested. So we have Robin Astrom. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Founder of Wehype, and they are an influencer marketing company focused on gaming. And Robin has been doing this quite a long time. I think most of his professional career. So he is more, quote unquote, an expert in kind of this new marketing vehicle. Now, of course, when I was in marketing, these things did not exist. So I'm a little bit out of my element. So that's part of the reason I'm bringing here. So tell us a bit about yourself and your background, Robin.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Eric. And my name is Robin, from 28 years old, from Sweden, running a company called Wehype. And as you're mentioning, we built a platform for influencer marketing in the gaming universe. And we've been running the company now for 6 years. And when we started, this was like really in the early days of content creation and quite early for influencer marketing as well. So I mean, in essence, what we do is that we kind of tap into the different social media platforms and focusing on YouTube and Twitch within gaming to kind of build an ad network out of all of these creators. So, on YouTube, there are more than 60 million gaming channels alone. So if you are a brand or a game publisher wanting to kind of work with these creators, how do you know which groups of creators is a good fit for you and your brand? That is what we're building out. So we're categorizing all of these channels based on the content they produce and based on the audiences they have and based on the performance they can drive for certain brands and games, and then optimizing for advertisers for that, basically.
So what are like the primary metrics which you segment these audiences on these different platforms?
So I mean, you look at anything from the size of the audience to the engagement within certain content categories, down to really demographics of those audiences. And I think that also what is important to take note on is that in influencer marketing, it's more of a contextual channel. So people are interested both in following a specific creator, but also the context and the content for it. So it's quite different from a lot of other advertising channels in that sense.
Got it. So, part of the overall thesis here is that, to build that, likely going forward, we're going to have to build more mass market games attracting broader audiences, right? And performance marketing is going to have it's continued to have its place. It's not going away anytime soon, but it's going to be far less effective. Like, how do you think like Wehype, the platform itself, can effectively replace or supplement like these traditional, marketing vehicles?
Yeah, so I mean, we are seeing a few trenches happening. One of them, as you're speaking about, with performance marketing being quite heavy on privacy, hyper targeting, and with the IDFA and these type of regulations coming into place, they're not going to stop anytime soon. There's going to be more regulations coming up, and that, the game publishers and developers using performance marketing need to find other vehicles and other channels to reach out. So we come in as a supplement there to be able to help them reach their audiences in a more contextual manner. So I think that's important. And then other trends that we're seeing, in general, people are spending more and more time following their favorite creators on the new channels, social media channels that are popping up. So we are really providing a strong performance-based channel to reach these audiences where you have their attention and where they actually spend their time. So we see ourselves not only as a supplement, but also really as the future for how games reach gamers, I would say.
But now, historically, my experience, though, is that this has not been really translated all that well to mobile yet. Is it primarily PC console? Or, like, what games are you really focused on? Or is it moving towards mobile? Like, I know Genshin Impact, I think, was a pretty big focus for this type of marketing. What has been your focus, and do you see mobile as a bigger part of the mix these days?
Yeah, so we started 2016. That was definitely much more PC console heavy. And these platforms as well, if you look at Twitch, if you look at YouTube and the content there are on those platforms, PC games are much more kind of native and organic. It's really what the creators have been focusing on.
Right.
But as this has been growing, and mobile games has, since 2016 and where we are today, are much more engaging. There are better graphics, and it's more entertaining to look at certain mobile games as well. So that's a natural kind of shift that is happening. But it's also about integrating mobile games into the organic content. So let's say you have a YouTube video that is 10 minutes long, and they can be speaking about anything. It can be a vlog video, a lifestyle video, but you're integrating a message for a mobile game within that content. And that is something that is driving a lot of growth currently in the ecosystem. So, it's majorly because Twitch and YouTube, it's been more circled around hardcore gamers. Whereas mobile games more tapping into a casual audience. And in order to reach this more casual audience, you cannot work with gaming content. You need to be working with like lifestyle content and other categories of content to tap into this more casual audience. And kind of now we're seeing technology enabling this type of advertising formats that is needed for this to happen, and it's also like this general shift of mobile game publishers needing to find alternative channels if they're going to keep up with their user acquisition needs.
Right, and I guess because people are moving more cross-platform, with games like Genshin and others likely to follow, particularly going forward, then this will become part of the top of the funnel on the PC and mobile for that matter, right? So it kind of lends itself. So I guess the real question I have is, performance marketing on console and PC has been interesting, but can you actually measure the success of these campaigns like the same type of way, ROAS, and all those other metrics that we see? How has that kind of evolved? I imagine initially it was more of just a huge top of the funnel, early stage type, promotion. But can you actually measure the success of campaigns that are on your platform?
Yeah, so that's also true that historically it's been very awareness driven, top of funnel, but we're now seeing more sophisticated methods of measuring, and you can also tap into and use the regular MMPs such as Adjust and other measurement partners, just as you would be doing with your other performance marketing channels. I think one of the big differences from regular performance marketing channels and influencer marketing is that it's not always direct response. So you're also building your brand for your IP or game as you're trying to get like a direct response or conversion or install to happen. So you would need to find other ways of measuring, or you cannot direct translate how you're doing this on your other channels and be successful within influencer marketing. You can attribute part of the campaigns, but you also need to look at the organic uplift, and you need to look at other parameters in a combination. And that's something that we're working quite intense to kind of drive and to help these game developers and publishers to find these right measurements. But yes, you can measure deeper down the funnel. You can, and we are doing campaigns that are optimizing for ROAS, for CPI, and for lower down the funnel metrics.
Got it. And I guess, like traditional marketing for console PC has been somewhat, the mix has changed from like TV, print, even retail to more online channels. And so you've been part of that mix change for a lot of these traditional console PC space, right? That's kind of why it's valuable. Again, I guess going back, and I haven't really given this enough of thought, I suppose, is that I think it's relatively clear that console PC is there have been successful campaigns. Like, how do you measure that success, like, objectively? Do you compare it to other campaigns? I guess you can't compare it to other types of spend necessarily. But like, what are the key metrics for yours versus others platforms?
Yeah. So one of the, if you look at the PC console segment, it's a lot about brand marketing and top of the funnel awareness metrics. So let's say on Twitch, you can measure your share of voice on the Twitch platform in the specific genre or category. So let's say it's an action game. So you can look at what are your competitors' share of voice, and you're launching your game or doing a promotion. How big piece of that pie are you kind of generating and exposing on the Twitch platform? And we have seen quite strong correlations between your concurrent viewership numbers, so the amount of concurrent people watching your game, watching creators streaming your game, and how that translates into Steam active players. So there's a quite close correlation often between your exposure on social media and how well the game is going. That is not for all games, but that are for some parts of games. So that is a quite regular way of measurement. And the same goes on YouTube. You can look at your share of voice on that platform in certain categories and also in certain territories, so geographically. And that can also be translated then into actual active players.
Right. So you're leveraging their analytic systems for YouTube and others to like help kind of quantify how successful you've been on your platform, on your campaigns, basically.
Yes. Yeah. So you look at. Yeah. Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I said that often campaigns that run through Wehype includes hundreds of influencers, content creators, and one of the interesting factors is also to look at the network effect that you're generating. So let's say you are following 5 different YouTube channels. We can identify and try to map out which audiences kind of overlaps on different channels, and then we can specifically group a campaign to target channels that have an overlapping audience to generate a stronger effect. And that also can generate, let's say on Twitch, you work with 100 creators, and then other creators see that they are kind of being promoting this game, and they're following through, and you're generating earned media that is also being translated into actual value for the publishers. So that's something that's quite.
Speaking of the platforms, I mean, again, my ignorance is here, but YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, I'm sure there are others but those are the three big ones, right? Like, how do you kind of rank these platforms? And I mean, honestly, how easy are they to use or to work with, frankly? I mean, like, I can imagine all this drama that's going on at Twitch right now can't be really good for your business, but maybe not. Maybe that helps you. I don't know. What is the dynamics? I know it's a really open-ended question, but what are the dynamics of these platforms and how are they to work with just generally?
Yeah, so first off, I want to say that we're really where the creators are. So as we have been building our business, we were very Twitch heavy in the beginning. We expanded into YouTube. We're currently expanding into TikTok as well. And all these platforms have different dynamics. So Twitch is more on, if you look on the audience spectrum, it's more on the hardcore segment, still very PC oriented. And it's also live content, obviously. It's really the dominating force in live content. So that, what does that mean? Okay, so Twitch is good for a particular type of game that is entertaining to watch for a longer period of time. It also caters to a more hardcore audience. You go into YouTube. YouTube is really the dominating force in VOD, video on demand. And like videos of 5, 10, up to 30 minutes. And it's also tapping into a more casual type of audience. And you can use different formats for influencer marketing. So you can do dedicated full videos, 10-minute long sponsored video for a game. But you can also, as I were speaking about before, tap into like a integrated segment. So integrate a mobile kind of ad into a native content of like, let's say 60 seconds. So that gives them a different type of opportunity for games that are not maybe super entertaining to watch, but they're fun to play. So that is a good objective for that. And then you have TikTok, which is even tapping into a more hyper casual type of audience. It's really the dominating force in short term videos, obviously portrait mode. So if you consider like what is my game and what type of audience do I want to reach, it's quite easy to then try to map out which platforms is the best for me. And at Wehype, we try to kind of quantify and blend this together so that you don't have to even think about, do I need to go on YouTube or on Twitch or on TikTok? It's more about inputting, this is my game, and this is the audience I want to reach, and these are my objectives or goals, ROAS, CPI, awareness, and based out of that information, we can automatically suggest which platform and which creators would kind of drive the best impact for your goal.
I don't know if you can answer this question, but this whole change with Twitch, I mean, in theory, kind of moving away from these huge these contributors with huge audiences to more of a smaller audience contributors, because I was thinking that it's just basically the cost. It just does not justify, like, the amount of people that are watching these streams cost them so much money that it doesn't make sense to pay them. They should pay them less than not more. Do you think that's a reasonable assumption, or is that something you don't know or can comment on?
I mean, I can comment on that. I think it's good that they're in to try to democratize. That is, at least their ambition is good, that they see, okay, it should be fair for all creators when it comes to the revenue share and to the value share on their platform. And they're trying to make great moves and take initiatives to help smaller streamers and creators grow on their platform. Whether this move of kind of reducing the revenue share for bigger creators will actually benefit the smaller ones, I don't know, because a lot of audiences and people come into these platforms due to these bigger creators. And if you de-incentivize them, right, that might also have a negative impact for the smaller creators. So again, I think
you're basically reducing their audience, in theory, for the entire platform.
Could do. It's hard to say, but I think that the ambition is right. Whether the execution is the best one or not, I don't know. Let
me ask you a more specific question. So if you take 100 creators that drive a million impressions, or you take one creator that drives a million impressions. Like from your perspective as an advertiser, or which group is more valuable, right? Like,
very good question. Yeah, so it depends on your goal. So let's say if your goal is awareness, you want as many people as possible just to know about your game. It might be more cost efficient to go with one big creator because kind of the CPM could be lower. But if you want to drive conversions, installs, ROAS, and so on, we have seen much higher impact and effect going with a bigger group of smaller creators reaching the same amount of people in the end. And I think that's quite natural as well. You know, if you have an audience of 1,000 live viewers, you cannot simply influence these 1,000 as well as you can if you have 10 people sitting in your live stream. You can almost speak to each and every one of them, and you can have a very high impact on. We have seen with smaller creators, I remember a test we did. This was I think back in 2020. We did a test with a creator who had 50 live viewers for a mobile game, and he managed to get 40 of them to install the game. So, you know, what is that in terms of like conversion rates? It's incredibly high. So if you scale that, let's say you take then 100 creators with 50 people each in their audience, and you apply the same conversion rates, you can have an amazing impact. So when I look into, okay, what is the future for this industry and what are we building for? It's really that. It's really enabling smaller creators to be able to monetize, but it's also enabling the advertisers to be much more cost efficient and effective with their marketing. So I mean, there's a lot of companies trying to do this, but you really need the technology. You need the kind of the insight on these creators, because there's also kind of a brand safety risk of working with as many individuals, and how can you keep control, and how can you verify they have done what they actually should do, and so on. But that is really where I think that the value lies, especially for mobile games as well, as they're very kind of heavy on the performance of it.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's interesting. If you were to target 50 people and get 40 spenders, right, in one campaign, right, that's like super valuable in mobile, even at that level, but also at scale. So, all right, that may be why Twitch is starting. I mean, that was my kind of thought, is that's why Twitch is kind of moving away, is because they see what the value is of smaller streamers, maybe not only from the management or the cost side, but also from the potential marketing and advertising, yields, I suppose. Are they that sophisticated, or is it is that part of their calculus, you think, or is it more of just a cost issue?
Yeah, I cannot really comment, and I don't really know what the objective is for Twitch in that sense. But again, I think that their ambition, and they're speaking about like wanting to do good for the entirety of their community, and not only the bigger creators. But what the end play is and so on, I don't really know.
Yeah, I don't buy that. I mean, I just don't buy that at all with that. I think it's got to be a dollars and cents issue, either on the top line or the bottom line, one of the two, maybe a combination of both. But you know me, I'm more cynical about those sorts of things. Speaking of cynical, I imagine that on the one side, like working with these providers like YouTube and Twitch and Facebook, et cetera, whatever, they must be relatively sophisticated in terms of ease. But I imagine that the creators are the worst, right? I mean, the creators got to be half morons, right? How is it working with these guys in terms of getting them to do what you need them to do? Because I imagine a lot of your brands and companies do not want idiots on YouTube or TikTok, cursing or, nudity or lewdness or whatever. And so, like, how do you keep these creators under control so that they don't damage the brands that they're trying to support? And maybe I'm characterizing these influencers a little bit harshly, but I see them all the time. I watch my daughter watch these morons talking about games all the time. Like, how do you keep them in check? Like, how do you work with those creators to keep that stuff in line?
Yeah, so these are we have to remember that it's on YouTube alone more than 60 million creators, so it's a huge industry, and the vast majority of the creators we work with are great individuals, creative individuals. They need support, obviously. That's why we're building tools and we have teams supporting on campaigns that we're running. But in general, first of all, you have kind of the filter of the Twitch policy, the YouTube policies, restricting what you can do and what you cannot do. But I think that more importantly, we need to remind ourselves what this really is. So it's supposed to be authentic content. Influencer marketing in its core is about authenticity. And that's why we always remind our brands that giving like an instruction sheet of saying X, Y, and Z is not what's going to give you the best results. These people know their audiences the best, and they should be able to speak to their audiences in their own language. That's not to say that they should do something that is inappropriate. We're never advising on that. But I think that advertisers need to rethink on the level of control they can have on other channels, and the level of control, if they want to keep that level of control, that will degrade the results and performance that you're getting out of influencer marketing. The best influencer marketing campaigns and companies, they are bold, but they're also, of course, clear on which creators they want to work with, what type of filters, and how they can kind of identify these creators. Of course, that is, yeah.
So, okay, all right. So how does the nuts and bolts of this work? So, for instance, if I want to do a campaign with you and I want to access a certain demographic of creator, demographic of audience that they reach, and you put together this mix of creators across different platforms, do I have like veto control? Like I don't want anything to do with PewDiePie or whatever, that dude, right? That guy's an idiot and he doesn't represent my brand, so he's out, right? Do they have that kind of control? Or is that something you obviously wouldn't recommend in theory for them to like individually cancel people? But how does that work?
Yeah, it's a great question. So it's really a mix, and it depends on your preferences, but it also depends on your goals. So let's say if you say, I want to optimize for ROAS, but I also want control on saying, I don't want to work with PewDiePie and I don't want to work with this creator and that creator. But what if those creators is the ones that will generate the best impact and the best performance? Those do not really go hand in hand. So you can have certain brand safety filters and certain kind of parameters that you want to target on, but that also limits your ability to optimize for certain goals. So most of the time, let's say you want to have brand preference and awareness, that's your goal. Okay, you can have quite good control on which creators to work with. But if you want to maximize on the deeper down the funnel metrics, it's more about our intelligence in the platform and data we have to be able to go out and find not only individual creators, but clusters of creators that could generate the best impact on your goals. So yeah.
Okay. All right. I got you. So what is like kind of the mix that you are recommending from I I know it depends on the product, right? But like, let's say I'm trying to think of a good example. I have a new survival shooter coming out. And do you make some kind of assumption on what demographic you should be approaching, and then you build a mix between the different platforms and the different creators? Like, how do the mechanics of that actually work?
Yeah. So it's a very good question. So if let's say it's a survival game, and we're inputting that into our platform, and then we can automatically generate and see which creators have, let's say in the past 90 days, been creating content with successful engagement and other metrics for that type of game. So similar games to the one that you're launching. So
Stop for a second there. So where are those metrics coming from? Are those coming from the platform holders themselves?
Yeah.
Or do you get actually that data sent to you, like proprietary data from?
Yeah, so we get data from APIs, from Twitch, from YouTube, and other platforms, and we're combining that data. And then we also have proprietary technology to be able to find. Let's say we have a match on one creator, we can analyze that channel, and we can go out and find siblings, lookalike channels for that channel, scale that. So that's how in very short, we're able to identify channels that it should be a good fit for your game, because we see that they have produced successfully content for similar IPs or titles in the near past. So that's a kind of a good prediction then.
Right. And so the second question, do you have actually direct relationships with these creators, or are you just leveraging the APIs from the platforms?
No, we have. So this is also I think that when we looked at this, there are more than 1,000 influencer marketing platforms. And most are considered intelligence platforms, so you can identify creators, but do they really have access to these creators? If you click the bottom, I want to work with creator X, Y, or Z, do you really get access to that creator? In many cases, unfortunately not. So that's something that we've been working super hard on actually building out a network, creator kind of ad network, where we have direct access to these creators.
Got it.
So it's kind of a community that we can actually activate. A lot of campaigns we do have a turnaround time of only 1 week. Sometimes it's only 72 or 48 hours until get something going.
Wait a minute. You mean people are building campaigns in 48 hours?
Yeah.
That doesn't seem very traditional publishing. Usually they're planning 12 months in advance, usually.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, interesting.
So you would be surprised that in a lot of cases, even though you're planning for maybe 24 months in advance, because you know the IP is being launched and you're iterating on your different marketing plans, a lot of things happen just days before the launch. And also once you launch, you need to be very fast on identifying how it's being picked up by creators and how you can kind of leverage that initial data that you get to be able to fast kind of maybe add in a new bunch of creators or reaching a new audience quite early on in the launch of your game to be successful.
And also there's the dynamics of the creator economy, I imagine, is that they come and go, right? You know, 1 minute they're the top of the heap, and the next minute they say something sexist or racist and they're canceled. So therefore, you got to move on to the next one, right?
It happens, of course, but I think this is also quite interesting when you look at the different platforms. So we've been looking very closely at TikTok for a long period of time, and TikTok is a lot about following. If you're a consumer or you're an actual watcher on TikTok, you're tapping into trends and you're following content. You're also following creators, but not to the same extent that you're doing on Twitch. So that is also quite interesting that on TikTok you can very fast become a famous creator, but it's quite hard to build fandom out of the audiences that you manage to build out. Whereas on Twitch, we see much more smaller but highly engaged communities that might stay with that creators for, 5 years. Each and every day, they go in and they watch that live stream together, maybe 100 other people every day. So you have extremely high engagement towards the creator on that platform.
Right. So I guess the one thing that kind of concerns me about this type of marketing channel, it feels like a kind of a hype train going into launch, right? So you support launches by building up the hype week before launch, maybe a week after launch. But after that, what exactly does the influencer marketing channel provide for these games that are now becoming software as a service? They're no longer just about the launch anymore, right? Not all games, obviously. So you can still serve that function for some of these AAA action games. But for most games that are more software as a service, what's the long-term value of for the publisher to continue to engage the consumer with these influencers?
Yeah, so this is something that we're seeing, or if you compare it to other marketing channels, actually influencer marketing has a unique edge here. So you can really use it and leverage it to build communities in the long term. And that's, so you do something for launch, but we are seeing that publishers now start to do activities even long before launch. You can do offline testing with creators. You can try to get intelligence around how entertaining is actually your game for creators to create content for. You do things ramping up to the launch, and then after launch, you build out communities with these creators. So there are different incentive models now. Maybe you're not paying to do one video or one live stream. Rather, you're maybe sharing part of the revenue of in-game items that the creators are driving revenue together with their audiences, or other ways of doing that. So it's really the best. Influencer marketing is the best tool for post-launch activities, to build communities and to reactivate and drive LTV, drive retention.
Right. So give me some examples of that, because what I've seen is things like Genshin, Apex, Valorant. Those are the ones that seem to be success stories.
Yeah.
But then I look at Valheim, and which is a fucking disaster, right? And they did great influencer marketing at launch, but it fell off a cliff. Now, obviously, that's not influencer marketing problem. That's more of a content problem, probably for Valheim in particular. But give me some great examples of success stories, and then some games that didn't do well with this channel that you might or may not have.
I think that you're mentioning a very important thing, and that is that you cannot simply use only creators to build communities and to drive retention. You also need to add new content to the game, and you have to do both. If you do both successfully, you add new seasons, new DLCs, updates, content, and you work with creators to activate that content, that's when you're really successful. So you cannot do only one and lack the other. If you have a very strong IP in game, a lot of creators will just create content without you having to engage too much with them. And I mean, I don't want to go into detail of that game being very successful or that not being. It happens all the time. Some games, they're also like more premium games, and they're not very entertaining to watch on a live stream or on a YouTube video. So they're not maybe really, they shouldn't really tap into using creators in the long run. Whereas certain IPs, as you're mentioning, Apex, we've been working a lot with Electronic Arts around like launching new seasons and working with creators, and specifically reactivating creators that have churned. So certain creators, they stop, maybe they go over to a competitive title, maybe they start playing Fortnite or right. Valorant or something. Those you can specifically target and fight through data and reactivate once you have new content coming up and so on. So I mean, again, you need both. You need new content constantly coming out, so it's interesting for the people wanting to play the game and stream the game. And you also need to work actively with building a community of creators and incentivizing these creators so that they have some reason to play your game rather than all of the other. It's a very competitive space, so all of the other games are constantly launching, constantly doing things.
What are the kind of limitations then on influencer marketing? Like, what doesn't it do that other channels will do?
Yeah, so it's harder if you don't have a great product or a great game. It's harder to use influencer marketing because, again, it's authentic, and you need to. It
could totally It could totally backfire on you, right? Because if your game is shit, then they're going to say so, right?
And the creators won't pick up the game if it's not good. So we see some games that have difficulties, even though they want to put in big budgets and they want to, really work with creators. Creators won't do it because they care about their audience more than they care about the short-term cash that they can get. So if you don't have a game that is great, it's much harder. Whereas other channels, you can put in as much marketing spend as you want to, because the channel won't say no. They will take the money, but the creators won't. So I think that's a big difference.
That's actually really interesting because, the product fit is even more critical with influencers than any other channel, right? Because no one cares. You can put anything on the Super Bowl. No one cares. Like, maybe they may not pay attention, they not care, but they're not going to badmouth it.
Exactly.
They don't like it if it's not interesting to them. That's a really good point. So you have to manage that pretty closely, manage expectations as well, right? Do you play the games yourself? Do you have people that kind of
all the time?
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, we play the games. We do again offline testing with creators to test out what type of creators will actually enjoy this. What type of messaging should we have when inviting these creators into the campaign? So you need to do a sell to get the creators on board. Unless you have a very, anticipated title that is coming out and all creators want to get on board, you need to do a little bit of selling towards different clusters of creators in order to be successful in actually getting them on board.
How is your company set up then? Are there I'm trying to think. Customer managers for each of these different customers, or product managers for different products, so that you're finding the right fit between the publisher as well and the influencer.
So how does that work? Most of it is done through technology and intelligence when looking at matching the right games with the right creators. So that is, again, it's crucial to have that fit right to be successful. But then we also have a creator success team. And these are people that are ex-creators themselves. They really understand on a deep level how you engage with creators and how you're being successful. So that's also one of the interesting parts, is that to be successful, you need the right technology, insight, and data, but you also need the right people and expertise to speak to these creators on their language.
Yeah. I imagine you're not hiring any 51-year-olds there, right? Like, you would never hire me to be a influencer engager or whatever the hell you call them, right? Like, it's all young kids.
Maybe not today, but this has been, I've been in this industry for 12 years, and it's now starting to mature much more. So we are seeing, there's a lot of creators that are in their 35s, 40s, and this will, in 10 years, they will be in the 50s and in the 60s. So it will change.
Yeah, you think? No, what I think is that you're going to age out, right? And so no one's going to want to talk to you because you're going to be too old. So you're going to have to move on. No, or hire people below you that can stay relevant with this group of kids. I don't know. What do I know? Let's see. What is like the long-term vision? Like, what is the kind of, where do you see the company moving to 3 to 5 years? Not like the results, selling yourself or whatever, but like, what can we expect from the space in terms of evolution over time?
Yeah, so gaming is really the future of entertainment. You see everything blending together with, movies and TV series becoming games and vice versa, and it's really driving the future of entertainment. And then you have creators, which is really the future of media. It's where people tend to spend more and more of their time. So in that intersection, you have something very interesting. And we are very focused on kind of building the infrastructure and incentive layer so that these two parties, the game makers, the game publishers and developers, and the content creators, can exchange value in a way that is natural and in a way that is beneficial for both parties. And we're also seeing more and more kind of collab driven efforts in which creators, their own IPs and their brands are getting integrated into games. And creators are building experiences within this game, such as Roblox. It's huge. There are a lot of creators that build their own worlds and experiences within Roblox, create content for that. And that is great value for Roblox. But it's also great value for the creators being able to kind of leverage the mechanics and building blocks of Roblox. So we are very excited to kind of facilitate that connection and building the incentive layer so that these two parties can collaborate seamlessly.
Very cool. I feel like I've learned actually quite a bit about this type of thing. I am constantly amazed at how engaged, anecdotally, my kids are with this economy, particularly my daughter.
Yeah.
So it seems like a very worthwhile channel to pursue, and it seems like everyone's kind of going that direction. How it moves to mobile is going to be interesting. The games that are specifically mobile, I can see TikTok as being a pretty big channel potentially because there's immediate push to the store. But that's interesting. So the final question, I'm going to try to ask this to all my interviewees if I keep doing this, is in what way does you think your product service help solve a problem or innovate within the interactive industry?
Yeah. So it's a good question. And for us, we know that all the macros, the trends are pointing the direction of people spending more time on social media following their favorite creators. So it will be inevitable for advertisers and game makers that they need to work with creators in order to reach their audiences. But the big problem is that there are millions and millions of creators. And it's really currently a bit of a hit and miss if you're trying to do it yourselves. How can you really ensure that the creators you're working with will show up, will do it in the right way, will actually drive performance and value for your brand? So we're solving that problem so that when you go to Wehype, you can actually trust that you can optimize for certain KPIs and measurements. You can actually trust that there will be a level of brand safety, and you can actually trust that you can actually be able to kind of execute the campaign the way that you want to. So I think that's the big question is not whether this will be the future or not. It's already here and it's growing massively. The question is which company will be able to provide and package this as an ad channel that is trustable, that is scalable, and they can actually drive good performance.
Very good. So how can they reach out to you and get more information about Wehype?
Yeah, so you can reach out on LinkedIn at Wehype, or you can PM me directly at Robin Astrom, or going to our website, which is wehype.com.
All right. Thank you so much, Robin, for being my first guest and victim. Hopefully we'll do some more of these, but thanks a lot for coming and talking with me.
Thank you for having me, Eric.